Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jake Tuft, and I'm very excited to present this to you. I hope that this research presentation will be beneficial to you as a healthcare provider and spark some more interest in the topic to further this research. Here's a list of my team members, and I hope for the best outcome out from this presentation. By means of introduction, this is the HPV profiles of females in the United States. And to introduce the human papillomavirus, it is a double-stranded DNA virus and is the most common sexually transmitted infection. It's transmitted by skin-to-skin contact, and there are two different risk types. First, the lower risk type may lead to genital warts and benign cervical changes, or you have the higher risk type, which is associated with cervical and other genital cancers. One of the main issues with this virus is that most HPV infections resolve without significant clinical consequences, but HPV is the leading cause of cervical cancer. This has provided the issue up to now. If most infections, if most infections go undetected, but at the same time it is the leading cause of genital cancer, that's an issue because you don't see the infection before it's too late and you have that cervical cancer. With this being a dental school, you may be wondering to yourself, okay, why are we dealing with cervical cancer? But the human papillomavirus is commonly seen in the mouth. Here's an example of some sores in the mouth that we can detect, and we may be a key step in stopping this virus from spreading to oropharyngeal cancer or other cancers that we might deal with. You can also see an example of the warts that it causes here. So in 2020, there's an estimated 13,000 women that would be diagnosed with cervical cancer in the United States, and more than 4,000 women could die from it this year. So those who are at the highest risk of contracting the virus are those that are diagnosed with HIV, who have HIV. So HIV being a high risk factor for contracting HPV has been found in international studies as well. Males ages 9 to 26 are recommended to be vaccinated, which impacts not only males, but women as well. And then there are few studies out there that exist that have detailed data on the prevalence of women being told by a physician if they've ever had the human papilloma virus infection. Which leads to our research question. What are the characteristics and prevalence associated with women in the United States who reported being told they're infected with HPV? So this study adds to the literature that's out there on HPV. We used a national database to characterize the prevalence and characteristics associated with women in the United States who reported ever being told that they're infected with HPV. So I just want you to take a moment and think to yourself, what were the possible results that we were able to collect? What are your predictions on that? And then, what are some ways that this may impact you as a healthcare worker as you consider gaining more knowledge on this topic, and how's that going to impact your patients? So the methods we used the 2015 to 2016 National Health and Nutritional Examination. You'll many times see this abbreviated as NHANES, NHANES, and this monitors the health and nutritional status of the civilian, non-institutionalized U.S. population. So they collect data by means of interviews and physical examinations. So using that data that they had already collected, we took the statistical approach of descriptive statistics calculated for the study variables of race, marital status like single, divorced, widowed, and then the other study variables were income, the amount of education one had, their country of birth, and citizenship. The outcome variable was whether or not they received the HPV vaccine. Cases were weighted by the full sample of a 2-year interview weight for demographic statistic computations. And our chi-square test was used, and the null hypothesis is there's no difference between variables stated and whether they reported ever being told they had HPV infection. So this is conducted to examine the association of study variables with the outcome variable, and our statistical significance was set at 0.05 with an SPSS, with a statistical analysis were performed using SPSS 25. So after computing the statistics, graphical displays are presented, and the results I would like to walk through with you right now. So here's our first table. This shows the demographic that was worked with in NHANES. So NHANES, it oversamples some populations to obtain more precise estimates for the subgroups and to assure a national representation of our sample. So they'll enter the homes of the individuals, and they ask them survey questions, do physical exams, and collect a lot of data that is very useful for many research projects. It's a great resource. So for this survey, the population mean age was 39.4. And as you can see, there was a variety of race or ethnicities, marital status, country of birth, and whether or not they had been told by an MD that they had HPV. For the racial distribution to start off of females with and without HPV, you have the non-Hispanic white females had the highest percentage of being told that they had HPV. Next is the Mexican American population, then non-Hispanic Black, followed by non-Hispanic Asian, and then other Hispanic races. So now looking at the marital distribution on this next graph here, you can see that the females that were married had the highest percentage of being told by a doctor that they had HPV, and that was at 3.48%. Then those that have never been married at 2.28%, followed by living with a partner, and then divorced, separated, or widowed. Those women who were born in the United States were more likely to have been told by a doctor that they had HPV. On this next graph here, we have the education status distribution. Those who were more educated, had some college education or more, were more likely to have been told by a doctor that they had HPV. And following up, with the being born in the U.S., if you're a citizen of the U.S., it was more likely that they had been told that they had HPV. So citizenship related with that. For our discussion, prior research findings suggest that there may be gaps between women infected with HPV and women reporting ever being told they have the HPV infection. So if that is the case, then those infected with HPV, then those who are infected by HPV and do not know it, they're at a high risk of developing cervical cancer if it's untreated. We found a gap between Mexican American women being told they have HPV and women either testing positive or showing clinical manifestations of HPV infection. So although they test positive, they were never told that they had HPV. With HPV being the main cause of genital warts, it was interesting to find out that 41% of women who reported genital wart treatment had not heard of HPV. Black women were disproportionately affected by HPV, yet only 1.14% of Black women compared to the 3.95% of white women reported ever being told that they had an infection. So HPV infections cost a lot of money. In fact, they cost the United States annually an estimated $4 billion. And then as more than 4,000 women succumb annually to cervical cancers. Now, to follow up on your predictions, how did this compare with what you thought? How does this affect you as a healthcare provider? And to quote our article, assuring that women know when they're infected is associated with increased knowledge and better adherence with treatment. Women who acknowledge having a previous infection are also more likely to have their children vaccinated, which is associated with fewer infections and less cervical cancer. Only 11.5% of women in our study have been told that they had HPV. Better communication, better recognition, and better understanding of HPV can lead to save not only time, not only money, but more importantly than those two, our human lives. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Here's some references. I really appreciate your time and hope that this was beneficial to you. Thank you.